What is going on, everybody? Man, Micah's back with another video. Back here with another unboxing video. Comparison video. It's been a while, it feels like, that I get to do these comparison videos. Been lacking on tech, but nonetheless, I've been able to finally get my hands on the iPhone 15 Pro in that natural titanium color that hides fingerprints very well, and that just has this subtle sheen to it that's just so clean. The matte finish is nice. It's lighter than the iPhone 14 Pro in its space black goodness as well, despite these aluminum rails just being unnecessary when it comes to fingerprints. What are some of the changes? What are some of the things to keep in mind if you are upgrading to the 14 Pro or the 15 Pro? Or you can't make up your mind, or if you're deciding to go from the 14 to the 15, what are some things to keep in mind? Well, one of the first things is build quality. Aluminum / steel, I believe. Natural titanium all the way through. Of course, we get the glass. But the first thing you're going to notice immediately is how much lighter it is. It's about a 10% difference in weight, but it is noticeable than the more heavier predecessor in the 14 Pro. Welcome change. Welcome in terms of the frames as well that we got to hold. What a joy it has been just in the few that I've had this device, and kind of bittersweet because I've only had the 14 Pro for about 3.5 to 4 months. What an experience it has been for me using the 14 Pro. The last iPhone I had prior to this was the 10R, so of course it's a significant bump in everything in terms of daily use. And here I'm probably going to notice more of an incremental update, because in terms of another hardware change, the A17 Pro chip 3nm architecture is in the 15 Pro as opposed to the A16 in the 14 Pro. And why I say minimal difference in terms of day-to-day use from that perspective is because it's only marginally about a 10 to 15% increase in performance, which of course is always welcome, but the substantial difference is not really there. And that's something I would have hoped that Apple would have really tried harder to do with the iPhone 15 Pro series. If you're gonna give the chip the title of a Pro like chip, there should be more of a 25+% difference in performance and graphical performance than 15 and potentially 20% on the graphical side. But nonetheless, it's the first Pro chip that we have in a smartphone, and kudos to Apple for being able to make that done here with the 15 Pro. I would imagine that next year with the 16 series that it would get the A17 or A18, and then the Pro 16 would get the A18 Pro chip or something like that. Probably the unified nomenclature amongst Apple's chips. Now, what else has been a change hardware-wise? Cameras have improved year over year here with a 48 megapixel on the 15 Pro, and it is super solid. And you also get an addition of a 28 millimeter and a 35 millimeter focal length equivalency in the camera. And so if I show you guys that here real quick, so I'm gonna swipe down. Well, actually, I'm gonna just show you in settings. If I wipe everything, where's camera? If I go into camera and I go into, see, there's not a lot of settings here for the iPhone 14 Pro in terms of formatting. But if I come here and go to my settings and I go in the camera, right down here, you see there is no main camera option on the 14 Pro, but there is a main camera option on the 15 Pro. And that's because even though I got rid of one of them up here, as you see, I got rid of the 28 millimeter. I wanted a drastic difference between my focal lengths when I'm trying to take a shot. So if I can't get it at 24, 35 is probably gonna be more appropriate. And that is my default that I have for my 1X, and my 2X, of course, is a 48 millimeter, which you also still get on the 14 Pro. And then the 3X on the 14 Pro and 15 Pro, I just showed the phones off inversed, but is 77 millimeter. So you're getting improved quality with the 15 Pro, but you also get 2 additional focal lengths in 28 millimeter and 35 millimeter, whereas you just have 24, 48, and 77 on the 14 Pro. And for the most part, they look the same because of the difference in color. Of course, you're going to notice that the rings will stand out a little bit more, but that's par for the course. What's another hardware feature that has changed? Well, you guys can probably see right there. We got the alert slider on the 14 Pro, and we have the action button on the 15 Pro. And that action button allows you to still use it and function as an alert slider by pressing it to know what state the phone is in, but then pressing holding it to actually change it from sound mode to silent mode. Additionally, within settings, once we now leave settings here, there is a whole action button settings panel. If you click on it, you get to come in here and change what that action button to do, from focus to camera to flashlight to voice memo to magnifying glass to shortcuts to an accessibility feature to nothing. You can change it all through there. And those who are whiz kids when it comes to shortcuts is probably going to have their phone jump through a bunch of hula hoops with that action button. Some I'm looking forward to seeing on the webs of the internet. But yes, the action button will revolutionize the iPhone devices going forward, and I can't wait to see what Apple will allow next. Maybe next year we get an additional press button, such as like a double press. I can definitely see people using it for Google Assistant. I've actually kind of grown to like Siri. It hasn't really been a problem for me so far, and I'm kind of happy for that, of course. But nonetheless, the future is bright for the action button on the 15 Pro and in iPhones in general, like it is with the Apple Ultra series. Now, what else can we talk about in terms of these phones? Well, iOS 17 is the reason why we get those additional camera features on the 15 Pro series and not on the 14 Pro as well. Now, the features for iOS 17, you could argue the action button is probably also included in that, but the features are going to be the same across the board in terms of software, so you're not really going to notice anything there, maybe very marginally, but nothing to really speak about significantly. So software will be more or less the same. Battery is also a couple percentage points bigger on the 15 Pro as opposed to 14 Pro, so we will get better battery life from that perspective, in theory, along with the better architecture of the chip and the efficiency of the cores, which will also go towards improving battery life on the 15 Pro as opposed to the 14 Pro. My experience with the 14 Pro was very, very solid. I didn't have any problems with battery life on this. Only when I started running the beta and the first initial, few beta updates that I noticed battery really drain on that. In terms of my battery health on here, at the end of the day, now that I'm about to ship it up, in 4 months, I'm still at 100%. So, I'm glad that I was able to secure my battery like that. I try to maintain just one charge a day, maybe a charge and a half, meaning I take it off the charger in the morning and like around 7 o'clock in the morning, and I put it back on the charger. If not, when I get home for an official charge around 7 p.m. Usually I can hold off till I'm about to go to bed around 10 or 11. I can pop it on the charger, my Belkin wireless MagSafe charger, let it charge overnight. Haven't had any problems. That is what you're getting in terms of the differences between the 14 Pro and the 15 Pro. Of course, additional colors such as I think it's called blue titanium or Pacific blue titanium, black titanium or space black titanium, and a white titanium. The white looks very sleek as well and does a great job at hiding fingerprints, as opposed to the blue and the black. Those show the fingerprints a little bit more, so if that's a big deal to you, just keep those things in mind. The other hardware that you'll notice has changed is that the 15 Pro is also more rounded. It feels better in the hands, and the curvature on both sides of the glass up here, as well as on the back side, you feel it. It feels good in the hand. Now, of course, I think it might be a tad bit more slippery, but because having a smaller phone, you should be able to grip this with no problems. And if we go back to settings, here's another subtle change that you'll notice. The bezels on the screen are also smaller on the 15 Pro, giving you increased display and screen real estate, than the 14 Pro. Another welcome change for iPhone devices. We'll see if this skips down to the base models next year going forward, or is this going to be a Pro thing. I think it's going to skip down just like the Dynamic Island did. The Dynamic Island bumped down to the base model iPhone. So I believe next year the action buttons should be going over to the base models, as well as the decreased bezel sizes to thin out the display and give you much more of an immersive experience. The other thing I didn't mention with the cameras is with ProRAW or ProRes, you can now record in 4K 60 as well with the 15 Pro, which is great because if you want to do 4K, you want to maintain some slow-mo for B-roll to slow the footage down, you can do that and achieve that a lot easier now with the iPhone 15 Pro. And you have a heat max option to increase the amount of the quality you can maintain while using HEIF or high efficiency imaging formatting for your photos with the iPhone 15 Pro as opposed to the iPhone 14 Pro. Now, who knows? These features in terms of the cameras could skip down to the 14 Pro next year with iOS 18 or later in like 17.5 or something like that. It's very possible. But for now, they're all exclusive to the 15 Pro, giving you some sort of a reason to upgrade to it, as opposed to, if not sticking with the 14 Pro, skipping the 14 Pro on over to the 15 Pro. But those are the changes when it comes to the iPhone 14 Pro versus the iPhone 15 Pro. Very subtle in terms of anything outside of hardware. This year was a big hardware thing, including, and of course I forgot to mention it again, I almost did, the switch to USB-C. Yes, Lightning, no more. That's what you have with the iPhone 14 Pro. iPhone 15 Pro and iPhones going forward will be USB-C for the long run, and you get USB 3 speeds on the 15 Pro as opposed to anything Thunderbolt. Hopefully that comes next year. But that is a most definite welcome change and quality of life update that most people wanted from Apple for a very long time, and they have now given it to us with the iPhone 15 series with increased speeds on the iPhone 15 Pro. So let me know down in the comment section below what you guys think about these two devices. Are you rocking either one of them? Are you debating or contemplating rather updating or upgrading to either of these phones? Let me know down in the comment section below. But again, as always, if you guys haven't already, make sure to ignite the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you don't miss my videos. So this is back to Let's See What's Cracking. It's man Micah signing out until the next video. Wait for